Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at Two-Face Harvey Dent as Batman. Now this is a pretty interesting take on Harvey Dent being dressed up as the Dark Knight. Now we have actually seen this version before in action figure form from DC Direct. Never actually came across that one, but I always thought the concept was really interesting and it always looked like a really nice figure. So I, for one, am actually happy to be getting this version from McFarlane. Now, I can already hear the murmurings that we don't have a comic Two-Face yet, and we're getting this. Slow your roll. This is a marathon, not a sprint. We gotta take our time and let the line do what it's gonna do. Trust me, there will be a comic book Two-Face pretty much, basically, probably pretty soon. So just have patience, my friends. Now this guy actually looks pretty awesome. Really interested to take a closer look at him. Now he does look pretty loony in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. These are not really needed. I don't usually have a hard time standing the figures, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with his data file card. On the front, you do have some source material from the character. Pretty interesting take on Two-Face. Now, this image is a closer shot of the character, but if you look on the back of the box, of course, it's like a wider shot of the scene, which is also pretty cool. So I actually do like that they have the card more focusing on the character and the box is a wider image. That's pretty nice. On the back you do have some information. Pretty kooky. Now if you look at the back of the card, it is a regular bio of Two-Face, so that could be a little clue that there is going to be another Two-Face released later on. Now he actually does come with some accessories that are really nice. He does come with some alternate hands. You got a red fist and a red sort of trigger hand or grasping hand. Really appreciating the effort of McFarlane trying to add more hands with the figures. That's a big selling point for a lot of collectors, so really cool. And you also get some alternate black side hands, which is another trigger hand and a sort of gesturing hand. Now these are actually really nice. They do have like sculpted parts on them, like the knuckles or like knuckle dusters, like, you know, actually protruding from the knuckles. So they're just not your regular reused hands. They do have a little bit of unique sculpt. Now, no Batarang per se, but I do know that the DC Direct figure actually came with a pistol. So we'll take care of that later on in the review. But for right now, let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. First impressions, basically what I expected from McFarlane, which is the split down the middle. The paint lines are really clean. This is, of course, built on the Hush buck or the Three Jokers buck. But for some reason, it feels a little bit cleaner. Like, I'm not sure what it is. It just feels somehow more like scaled down. I'm not sure why that is, but you could just tell by having it in your hand that it is a little bit different. Love the two-sided version of the costume. You got a bright, really bright red and a sort of black satin kind of color. And you got that freaky head sculpt. Pretty cool. Like, first impressions, nice figure, really in McFarlane's wheelhouse to do one side of the face all distorted and misshapen and stuff. So that's really something McFarlane excels at. So I, didn't expect anything less. Pretty nice. Let's take a look at the head sculpt close up. You do have half of the cowl in a red with a regular face, and then you have the other side where it's split down the middle in a black, but with the disfigured face of the acid burns that they did to Harvey Dent. And even the cowl is a little bit distressed, has a little bit of like burn marks on it, or like, little sculpting details. Now the ears are pretty nice. They're kind of reminiscent of like first appearance of Batman, where they look a little bit like horns, which gives it a really distinctive shape to the cowl. Gives it a little bit of a Mephisto, evil aura to it. So that's pretty sweet. And and then on the toasted side, you do have that big bulging eye, which gives it a little bit of pop. Pretty sweet. You do have articulation. Let's take a look at it. Now this is on that neck plug that the Hush body uses, which basically limits the articulation looking up, but it does look good, and you do get a lot of range besides looking up. I don't know why they use this. I really wish they would use the plug with the added articulation of the head moving on the plug, which would give you like the ultimate range of motion in the head, because you would be able to manipulate the neck and at the same time manipulate the head. But if you kind of think of it, if this is really a complete cowl, maybe it's like one piece, like a stiff cowl. So I'll take it either ways. It's just the way that they chose to execute this figure. It's fine. You could look down really well, which is awesome. Like I said, can't look up, basically at all. I mean, slightly if you push it, but then you start getting that gap here at the lower neck. So you do got right to left, and you could still tilt his head for some character. Cool. Moving down, let's go ahead and take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side. You got that full tilt whirl at the waist, giving you a lot of movement. You got a lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel, pretty smooth. So you could twist them, get them in some action poses. Not too much of a crunch. It's there. You could tell it wants to give you some crunch, but you can't make the upper chest touch the belt, so that's less than, I think even my Hush has a little bit more crunch than this one. All the different bodies that are used on this book actually have a different midsection crunch. Like I remember the 2-pack Hush has nothing, but my blue Hush actually gave me a little bit more. And then of course the 3 Jokers didn't have much crunch at all. So I guess it just depends, You can mod these and get a crunch if it bothers you that much, but for me this is fine. Now you can lean them back, like per usual for McFarlane figures. That's not a problem. So you got that. Let's take a look at the shoulder. Now you do have that socket and bushing shoulder joint. It is not a traditional butterfly joint, but you still get some added range of movement with that sort of bushing in there that gives you a lot of movement, but it also covers up the gap between the shoulder and chest. Now, one thing I don't like is you could see where they didn't get a smooth transition from the, like about the collarbone down into the shoulder. Now, I did learn with my Hush that you can actually pop the arm off and then cut that thick piece there, and it actually makes the bushing ring like swivel around a lot easier, and it doesn't look so like that drop. You can move it up to like fill in the gap, but it just frees it up a little bit more if you want to go that route. But you do have up and down, front to back, bicep swivel, nice double jointed elbows that look really good. Straighten them out. Now, there's not really any sculpt work or texturing or anything like that. It is a smooth design, but you do have some nice muscle tone. You can see all of the separations in the shoulder muscles down into the bicep, and then going down into the gauntlets. Now, of course, you got a hand here with that 4 ways of articulation from McFarlane, where you have hinge, swivel, and tilt. And interestingly enough, this hand actually has a coin in it. I didn't really notice that, but yeah, there is a coin in the palm for like when Two-Face flips his coin to decide if you live or die. He has it already embedded. The only thing is that it is a gold color instead of like, a silver, which is basically what you usually see the coin as. Now on the other side, you have the same thing, but in black. I do like how it's like a satin black, and when you get to the actual gauntlets, they're more of like a wet black, which would be more like a high gloss black. So that gives it some separation and changes it up a little bit. Actually gives it some cool contrast. And you got a fist on that side. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and pop off the hands and switch them out. So I'll pop off that hand, and I actually want the trigger hand, and then we'll pop off the hand with a coin, and I actually want the other trigger hand. Pretty simple and easy, swapping out of the hand, so that's cool. Now you can get him in a T-pose pretty simply. He actually gives you even a little bit more, almost a Y pose, and you can move his arms above his head for more dexterity and range of motion. Now moving down, you got that raised emblem, that sculpted out emblem, but with a really clean paint job. I mean, this is just immaculate work. You have black on one side and red on the other, and it's just perfect right down the middle. Crazy. Going down into the belt. Now, this is the belt from Hush. It's just done in your, two-sided colors. You got your black and your red. Even the trunks are split down the middle. And another thing you could tell is that on the black side, on the cowl, and even here on the upper torso, there's a hint of blue shade. Like that, you could barely see it, but it does give it a little bit of depth and a little bit more paint added just to give it some definition. So that's pretty cool. They did not, however, do it on the legs, but you can always do that yourself. Add a little bit of paint. Now let's check out the thigh swivel. Man, this guy has awesome thigh swivel. I mean, really good. And I haven't even heated this one up, but this is how McFarlane figures are supposed to work. You're supposed to have that almost complete range of the thigh from like one side to the other. And what this allows you to do is actually swivel the foot from side to side in any direction you want without having to have a thigh cut that actually makes the thighs look really horrible. Whenever I see another figure that has thigh cuts, that's like the first thing I see. If there's nothing there to hide the thigh cut, like some sort of buckles or anything like that, if it's just in the muscle, it just really sticks out to me. And as soon as you use that thigh cut, you break up the sculpt and it looks really unnatural. And that is why I despise thigh cuts that are not hidden. If you hide them with some sort of, pouches or something, then that's not a problem. But if it's just cut into the muscle, I just really do not like that. It's very unappealing. But this one doesn't have that problem because you can have that movement without actually having the cut. Now you can kick up really high. And of course you could kick back as well. Now do not be afraid. The trunks actually are made of rubber. That way they move out of the way. And when you put the legs back, they actually go back to their original shape. Can cock out his knee. He does have that sweet McFarlane hip swivel. Double jointed knees. Straighten them out. Up and down at the ankle. Right to left. Rocker. And of course toe articulation. Before we go, let's take a look at the lower body. Not too much in texture or sculpt work. It's just a clean suit with the Batman style boots, but they did do that satin black and then the glossy black at the boot. So I actually really like that. That's awesome. But you got nice muscle tone and the contrast of red and black on either side. Take a look at them from the bottom. No tread, but you do have some identifying marks. Moving up the back, no sort of texture or sculpt work. Into the back of the belt, the pouches do go around, and then you got the back of the figure. The cape is another thing. This is the cape from Hush Batman, but they did the perfect paint job right down the middle. All in all, really nice. I really like this figure in hand. I mean, that's one thing I've been trying to, talk about or show people about McFarlane figures, is that it's such a big line that you can build one Justice League that looks more like comic book style, and then we'll be able to build a Justice League that has more like textured or like alternate versions of heroes. You have short Batmans, you have tall Batmans. I think the only thing we're missing is like a tall Superman. You have animated stuff, you have video game stuff. So this all makes where you could have like completely different little displays of all different types of figures, versions of characters. They don't necessarily have to, go together. And another thing is, like, in your office, if you're a big fan of Two-Face as Batman, you can actually get a little diorama of like half of a building or a rooftop, and then put this guy up there, have him on display on your desk. I think that's a big part of what, McFarlane tries to do, is each figure has like a pose he could be in or a way he's supposed to be displayed to like show off his best side, So all in all, really nice figure. Now, as I stated before, in the DC Direct version, he did come with a pistol. And of course, Warner Brothers has tied McFarlane's hands because they do not allow him to put, any kind of weapons, like firing weapons, with the figures, which is a big obstacle that McFarlane has to, get around. Still trying to get sales without being able to add your basic weapons. And it is not McFarlane's decision because, of course, he makes his Spawn line and he has no problem adding all kinds of machine guns and pistols or whatever. That's just a rule that Warner Brother has placed on McFarlane. But I do have this custom pistol. Now, I did decide to paint it with gold and silver gunmetal to give it like a two-tone, and so it would be specific and unique to this figure in my collection. Now, in the gripping hand, it does fit right in there. Pretty dope. And that means now this, character who's usually pretty crazy has his weapon of choice. Sort of like a 45, a little bit custom, it looks like, though. Pretty nice. This actually works well with him. I really like the way it looks. And of course, when I get figures, I have tons of custom fodder, tons of weapons, tons of stuff. Plus, I also paint a little bit. And that allows me to get these figures the way I am happy with them. And that is not to say that other lines don't get customized, because I'm pretty sure all lines get customized little details that you want to add to make it a little bit more personalized to your preference. Now, that gun looks cool with him. Really like the way that looks. Now, another thing I wanted to do was actually build him a coin. So I actually got a little piece of fodder and made a coin. Now, I did paint this on either side and then sealed it so that you could touch it and put it in between his fingers and not have a problem with the paint. And I did also decide to do a gold side, like the one in his palm, and then a silver side, just to give it, two sides and add a little bit of consistency to what the coin looks like. Now, mine, you can actually fit it in between his fingers. So now you could have two options. You could use the one where the coin is in his palm, or you can use the one where it fits right into that sort of gripping hand. And then kind of make him look like he's looking at it. So pretty cool. I didn't really expect much from this figure, but having him in hand and messing around with him, adding my own little details, once again, he has turned out to be a really surprising and cool figure. Now, before we go, I do want to do some comparisons. Mainly, the only comparison I wanted to do was to pit him up against my custom black version of the Hush Batman. Now, when I actually stood these guys side by side, for some reason the Hush seems like a little bit taller. I'm not gonna say by much, but just like that, smidgen. For some reason he was taller than this Two-Face Batman. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the way I was standing on, but like I said, this guy feels a little bit more sleeker for some reason. But they do look good together. You could put them, going at each other, having a battle against each other. You could pose them alone, with his own little display. Awesome, awesome figure. Now, another one I wanted to bring up because I'm almost done with this guy. He's about 90% done, and that is my custom definitive Superman. Now, he is actually the same height as Hush Batman, and I did this on purpose because I actually want him to match well with this figure and to be taller than a lot of the other figures in the McFarlane line. Now, he came out pretty nice. I painted the boots. I added another blue to the whole costume, but like a wash. That way it's not just in one spot or like a complete cover of the suit. He has like a really dingy grayish blue, and then he has that light, more baby blue on top. So almost ready to make a video on this guy. I'll show you how I built him, but this Two-Face version of Batman is an awesome addition to the collection. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.